you're going to find something, some type of talent you didn't even know you had, and then that might be your main thing.
Like talking in front of people.
Yeah,
Huh,
screw that.
yeah.
I'm not doing that. There couldn't have been a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old that was like, I'm going to be a painter when I grow up.
Yeah.
At that point, we're all saying we're going to be firefighters, we're going to be pilots, we're going to be astronauts, we're going to be cowboys, things like that. We're
We're
going
going
to
to do
own.
podcasts. We're going to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
on the phone and doing other things while we're doing the
No, we
podcast.
got a job starting right now. So
Man, when we were kids, when I was a kid, Kevin, I've never seen you as a kid. I've never known you as a kid. And I'm going to try to jump back into a story a little bit later in the show about how young you were, how young my parents were. Even if it was late 20s or early 30s, that's where I'm at right now. And my brain can't wrap around the way my parents would have thought. I'm still trying to think of a way to tell this story because I butchered it so bad the last time I tried to do it. It wasn't
Okay.
with you guys, but I still need to think about how to do it. So more to come on that.
All
But
right.
you know, typically the dream of owning the railroad or owning the biggest, tallest building in New York City doesn't necessarily always come to a close. People don't do that.
no,
People,
Carnegie didn't dream about that. Neither did Trump.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. But talking about just one guy versus us, our aspirations were, different than where we landed. I'm sure.
Well, first I want to say that I had somebody ask me if you were my son, and I had to tell them no. And
Well,
they said,
that's correct.
so
I'm
much
not.
like you. And I'm like, okay,
You really think so?
I don't, but they did.
I
So,
don't either. My dad's way
so,
taller than me.
yeah, I've got a boy way taller I've got a boy your dad's size. Yeah.
Yeah,
So your dad's
yeah.
taller than that, though,
I think he's right at 6'2".
is he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Um.
He's a big boy, though. I mean, he's like,
Oh yeah.
or he's a big boy in the belly. Just kidding. He's
No,
not. He's
he's not.
that little boy. Yeah. That young man. Yeah.
So what was the dream? What did you want to be like? Let's go back to school. What were you guys doing? What were you guys thinking about when it was time to grow up? What does that even mean? First off, but what was the dream?
my life path has been very nonlinear, very nonlinear. We there's going to be a video that we host on our website on our About Us section that kind of goes into detail of our reason d'etre, convictions, and the reasons why we're here and what we do and how we do it. And it's pretty loaded because it goes into 42 years of life experience for me and at least 25, a little bit more. Kevin's goes back. Anyhow, we're both convicted and love what we do. And where we differ on that is Kevin actually did gravitate towards, no, it wasn't when he was a kid, but early on, a lot earlier, more early on than it was for me. But for me, it was my aptitudes in science and math were really high. English and reading, not so much. I was supposed to be an engineer, went to school to be an engineer, lasted a year because I just couldn't stand the passive aggressiveness. Like I was directly enrolled into engineering school, so I got to get right in there. And we're in team building, and it's very passive aggressive, and nobody knows how to communicate. And they'll learn how to communicate, but I was also young and dumb and idealistic. I'm like, this is not what I do not want to be in a room with these people for the rest of my life. So I decided to have a lot of fun and focused on the things that I really had a passion for. And I honestly sucked at. I'm a very slow reader. Um, I also don't, I express myself a lot more verbally now than I ever have, but that's through practice. I was really bad at slow reader and articulating myself. And the best way I could do that, learn how to do that was through writing. So I became an English major, pursued that and didn't know how in the heck I'd have a career out of that. But I've always loved working with my hands. That dirty hands, clean money type approach where you leave it all out on the field. I mean, we all participated in athletics in school and pushing ourselves there. So I've always wanted to push myself. If I don't have something to push myself towards, I go to shit. So I did. I found myself in a little bit of that in college, but in the summertime came and I was ready to work. And landscaping was it for a couple of years. And then a buddy of mine came to me who's down at Miami with me, and I always wanted to be a pilot. That was your original question. So I thought I'd spend time, get my pilot's license and pursue that. And at Miami had a course, and I was taking my pilot's license courses. So I had all that taken care of, but I didn't have the flight time because I didn't have the money to do that. So in the meantime, working in the summer, buddy says, "Hey, we got student properties to paint, and I know you're in town and you're not afraid of hard work. Would you have any interest?" I'm like, "Sounds cool." So I showed up to the first address that he gives me, and it's like this converted, it's not a governor's mansion, but it's a mansion, converted in 4 subunits. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be here all summer long. And like, that sounded dreadful to me, being in this one place all summer long. So the kids in my class, I asked them if they want to come and join me and help paint. And then, so that was my entry into it. And like, my level of quality and all the things were, I mean, the standards were down here, but it got me into painting and introduced me to people in Sherwin-Williams. And so it's been God's path for me. I mean, it's just what I'm, all the things that I wanted to do. I've never wanted to do any of those things more than I want to do this now with the people that I do it with. And it's been a long path and hasn't made sense except for in hindsight. But yeah, that's ultimately what I wanted to do. I pursued a career in Sherwin-Williams, fell out, started contracting on my own, very young and not knowing how to blaze through the world. And a mutual buddy of ours who worked in Sherwin-Williams reconnected us, and I came in helping Kevin out, and I was really just the means to the end because Devonna was freshly injured and Kevin was working on his own and he needed somebody reliable. And that was the beginning of our mature relationship. I've known Kevin longer than that through Sherwin-Williams. I always knew who him and Devonna were. They had a great business, and we were always proud to give their name out, but that was the extent. And then Kevin and I got back together, and he introduced me to Christ, and again, that's where this loaded story just goes. So anyhow, that's what's got me here.
Yeah. I mean, it's all interesting stuff. What? I figured you did. Come here. This typically doesn't happen on Wednesdays.
That's all right. Bring him in. Let's see him.
Who is it?
What's up?
Oh,
Look up there.
Look in the screen. What's up, buddy? He sticks his tongue out.
what are you going to be when you grow up?
I'm gonna be a police officer.
Okay,
Yeah,
police officer. All right.
Kevin, I want to talk about your aspirations as a kid. I've known you my entire life. And what I said at the beginning was that I've always known you as an adult. I've never known you as a kid, despite the fact that you may have been a kid when I was born, per se. What's our difference in age? I'm 33.
I'll be 60 this year.
Okay. So, I mean, a mere 27 years.
Yeah.
When I was 27 years old, my goal was to go out with my friends, drink alcohol, golf, drink alcohol. And, that whole situation, I wasn't married, didn't have kids. I was, just running around, doing whatever I was doing. And like when I was younger, I always saw you guys and my dad and my grandparents as like these people that had it just all figured out. And this is kind of a conversation that I've seen here and there on the internet, things like that. And, when you do look at the people that have been around for a few more years than you just assume they got it all going on. They got it all figured out. And I was talking to one of my other clients the other day. He has these cool Airbnbs. They're made out of trains, and we're doing interior shots of them. And I tried to tell him the story that I just completely blew. And he pretty much told me, as long as that makes sense in your head, I agree with you. And because he didn't know what I was talking about. And I was like, man, I think about this all the time. I don't know how to tell anybody. And it was basically about how when my son was born, I was 30 years old. When I was born, my dad was 30 years old. And I never assumed that he had the same thoughts in his head that I still have. Thinking about when I was a little kid, because I still remember a ton of stuff growing up in Newport, everything with my sisters, my dad building golf courses, gone for a week, 2 weeks at a time. And it just being us us four at home waiting for dad to get back home. But, I was like, I never assumed that he thought about high school. I never assumed that he thought about certain things because I painted this picture of my dad in my head, do no wrong. He's the dad. And, I'm just like, now that I'm figuring out why I have these thoughts in my head, I'm like, man, I bet my dad had those thoughts in his head too. Because he
Oh,
was
yeah.
just a kid. I mean, not a kid, you know what I'm saying? He was in his early 30s, but coming out of your 20s and having 3 kids already. And I mean, I'm trying to still figure out a way to tell the story, but you paint a picture of somebody in your head and it's not always exactly 100% accurate. But I always think about that. I always think about what I assume somebody is thinking, which is a bad way to go. I'm being completely
Oh,
honest,
no,
but
no, it's actually a disease. I have it too. It's called analyzation of everything that you touch, smell, see, feel. So the first time that I saw your dad, he was on a balcony, in the college campus area. And, my sister was up there too. And, whenever I went in the house, I think your uncle still owns a billboard company, right?
yeah, yeah.
He had a billboard on his wall, like glued up on his wall, a big billboard. And it was either it changed. I think it changed. It at one time. I'm pretty sure it was Marlboro's because that was just back in the day. Marlboro's were
Oh
went to
yeah, yeah,
Cowboy,
yeah.
the whole deal. And then it might have been like Coors because when Coors came to town, which was back then,
Uh-huh.
for the first time, it was a big deal. I mean, like, oh, but it's made from the mountain snow,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean the whole deal. But so yeah, that was the first time that I'd seen him, and he seemed very distant but mature. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of a guy. Like,
Right.
same scenario in my mind. He's only, a few years older than I am, but I'm like, that dude's got it together.
Exactly.
He's
That's
got
what
a
I'm
mall.
getting at.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Coors Light on the wall. I mean, it's like, oh, he's living in a college campus, whatever. I don't know if they like that or not. I have no idea. But needless to say, it was a cool place to live. I mean, it's still there today. I go by every time. What is that? Putnam? What
I
is that
don't
running downtown right through Marietta from where Don lives now?
I don't know where Don lives now.
Well, no, where he used to just live. You
I'm
might
not
not.
really sure where that is
Bottom
either.
of the hill of the junior high.
Bottom of the hill, junior high, Glendale 7th, and
But you go
Putnam.
up, the hill into the
Oh,
college town, and then you go. So Putnam, yeah,
Putnam, yeah.
yeah. So it's on Putnam, and I look up over there, and I always see that balcony. And
Well, yeah, you said it. I mean, you said the exact words that I was thinking of. He's got it all figured out. And Joe Rogan said this on his podcast. He was like, when you're 7 years old, a 9-year-old, that is the biggest age gap in the world. And
yeah,
you don't even consider associating with a 9-year-old when you're
no,
7. But when you're
right.
33 and you're talking to somebody that's 35, there's no. You
Mhm.
guys are the same level. You're doing all of the same things, but back in the day, if there was somebody a couple of grades older than you just didn't even screw around with them.
Yeah. Well, they downgraded you so bad, and they
Well,
probably
yeah, they did.
hey, but it's like junior,
Yeah,
freshman,
exactly.
whatever.
But
Yeah.
even in the freshman's brain, you're like, man, I can't compete with these guys. They got way more
Right.
figured out than I do.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty wild.
yeah.
Pretty cool.
So yeah. But me thinking about my dad's thoughts, just based on the thoughts that I have now that I am his age when I was born. There's a lot of avenues that go into this, and it's tough to explain.
Yeah.
But
No, I got you though. I like the
no,
30-30 deal. That's pretty cool.
yeah, you should have seen me trying to tell that story to that guy in that train car. And he said, "You're as long as you know what you're talking about." Because he just wanted me to
Yeah.
stop talking.
Well, I can say this. This is what I learned just yesterday.
Uh-huh.
You might not want to say all the things that are in your head sometimes.
There you go. I overshare
So
sometimes.
not right. I'm just plugging that in. You are the man, Brett. Seriously. I mean, that type of an active mind, is just, man, it's cool. I mean, there's so much adventure. I mean, I'm stuck with it. I mean, and sometimes it's a curse, but the visionary part of it, what you can see in your future, you go for that. And, so we'll get to that. So
Whether you're a visionary or wherever you are, complacency is the enemy of progress.
Yeah,
And
it is.
so I think what closes the age gap is obviously not, not time, not chronology, because there's always that gap between the ages. It's the wisdom and realization that nobody's got it figured out, and we're always in development and always trying to be better. And if you're complacent, comes in the form of a lot of things that seem really good, but like, yeah, you have a job that is comfortable and it pays enough to pay the bills. And guess what? You're part of the rat race. And I don't mean to oversimplify it that way, but if you're doing the same thing every day, all day, even if it's providing food and fruit, you need to find something that is going to not numb your brain like TV and sports. And I love both of those, but like, yeah, limit yourself on that and read books and look for other things. That's going to get your brain thinking a different avenue, because there's so much more to life. And if you're actually doing that, it slows down time. Everybody talks about how time flies, and it does retrospectively.
speaking of time,
Mhm.
I'm going to go back to where I'm sorry,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at the time and we only have so many minutes.
Yeah, that's
Sound
true.
right?
And
I apologize.
No,
I-
let's go, Ryan. I know I talk. So,
Yeah. So what I was going to go into,
okay,
go ahead,
for
Brad.
it. No, I was just gonna say, once you're done, I have a story about back in time that I want to bring up to you because it's pretty damn
Okay.
funny. But you first.
Okay. So just just hitting on that, that visionary and always thinking about whatever. Yeah, it started for me like, I mean, I thought for sure in Newport, looking out the window at a car burning behind our house because the fire department, that's where they like practice. I
Oh,
wanted to be a fireman. So that's what I was going to do, is be a fireman. And then I went up to spend a month or so, whatever, with my cousin Neil, for the summer. And his dad was a painter. So I was 16, 17 years old. And, that just started the dream. So that's in short, I mean, on
Right.
where we're at. I mean, long, in betweens, but, meeting up with Nick, that was pretty amazing, to be able to see, what I mean, and just be blessed with what we have. I'd have never dreamed ever that I did, I wanted it, but, this is pretty cool. I'm definitely very thankful. It can go like that though.
Oh, for sure.
Every bit of it. It's amazing how fast that'll come to mind too. I mean, it could just I mean, I don't know, but I'm very thankful that God's blessed us. I feel like he's very well, he owns it all anyway. So
Yeah,
we're
that's
just
true.
thankful for what he gives us. Okay, go ahead. Story.
Well, I wanted to say real fast that sometimes I get these, intrusive thoughts, very, very bad. And I mean, sometimes about my son, those are 1,000 times worse than what I'm talking about right now. But sometimes I'm just like trying to go to sleep and I'm just like, what if this whole thing just shuts down? What if I lose 2 clients? What am I going to do? And then I start thinking about, what if people just lose interest in everything that I do and they just stop? How long can I really keep this up before it really comes around and bites me? And I was like, okay, stop thinking about that. If, what's the contingency plan if somebody does back out? What if this cancel happens? What are we going to do to back it up? So that's that. Visionary. I thought I was a visionary when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, and I would hide my 40% out of 100 test scores under my mattress.
That is visionary
Yeah, okay. So I would get those.
And resourceful.
and resourceful.
Yeah. So when family would come in town, typically it was my bedroom that we rented out. Okay. Clean sheets, put them on there.
Oh, Lordy, is this me?
This is you.
Yeah.
So family comes in town. Brett gets the couch, typically just in the living room, sleeping bags, all that. And you were very gracious enough to make the bed the next day. And you lift up the mattress and you're tucking that sheet underneath of it. And you find a bunch of effed up tests under there that I completely failed. Now, I think you addressed me. You said, Brad, I found these tests that you failed underneath your mattress, and you didn't tell my mother. Me trying to hide them under there in the first place instead of literally just taking them somewhere and lighting them on fire. That was the dumb part on my end. But yeah, I remember you finding my failed tests under my mattress. So we stopped hiding them under there. I think it might have been the same weekend you whipped a wiffle ball at me as hard as you could. It hit me square in the shoulder, and that was the end of that day. I was crying. I was
And
trying to
of
think.
Of
No,
course,
go-
I said that didn't hurt.
Yeah. Stop being such a baby. My visionary, my aspiration as a kid, I was like, I was probably around the same age. I was probably 16, 17 years old. When I was like, let's do radio. That'd be fun. That'd be cool. And it sprouted into what it is now. But I remember being a kid and I would mute the radio after songs would stop at at the end of songs. I would pretend I was the DJ. And that was like, I wasn't 16 or 17 doing that. I'm not, that creepy. But I was probably, 9 or 10 years old doing that kind of stuff. And I think that's what kind of kickstarted that. And definitely video editing. I mean, I've been doing that ever since I had a camera.
No, you're amazing at that. That's for sure. But grandpa, your grandpa was not my grandpa, but Craig's dad, your dad's dad. I mean, that dude, he was the king. I mean, he was the king. I mean, that's what everybody listened to that radio. I mean, on Ohio State football, man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He was on it.
Yeah. And that was,
I remember the van. He had an Ohio State van that he did up.
yeah.
I saw a van like that. It's very similar. It was very old, like on a back road, and it was just sitting there all nastified, and I thought, I wonder if I'll bet. And then I'm like, nah, there's no way. But anyway, yeah.
To be in development doesn't mean that you have it figured out. You're just you're just doing the next thing. Your video editing wouldn't come your way unless it was a byproduct of your DJing and then what you're exposed to. And you didn't know that was going to be an iron in the fire to lead to your future, lifestyle, income. And so we all have those scary thoughts about it get taken away. And if you focus on that, then it's crippling and you're acting out of fear.
Yeah.
So you can visit it because it's human to visit it, but you have to pull yourself out, and half the battle is showing up. And like sometimes you don't even have to be prepared. You just show up, be willing to engage in the battle and push through. And if you do that repeatedly, you're going to find some type of talent you didn't even know you had. And then that might be your main thing.
Like talking in front of people.
Yeah, screw that. I'm not doing that.
Bore the shit out of people. It's like, who in the hell comes on and watches us? But still, I mean, like.
Well, no, I was talking about with on your stage, on the
Brett,
stage fright.
Gotcha.
Yeah. No.
Brett, you do an amazing job.
He's like,
Maybe not in public speaking.
No.
Say it again. Mufasa.
That thing, and I was thinking, you always think about something you should have said after it's over, like especially when you're fighting with somebody, I'm not much of it
with your wife. It's like, I should have said this. This is what
exactly.
This is the biggest. But I was saying something I should have said in that podcast about public speaking and how terrible I am at it. I'm sure I would be okay at it if I committed to it and did it a couple of times a month. But when there's 3 or 4 years in between public speaking events, when I'm the fill-in guy for the fill-in guy, I don't gain enough experience. So, as soon as the nervousness fizzles away, I don't know how to bounce off of what I did before because I completely forgot about it. So there wasn't enough. I guess the rust came back. Yeah. Not enough repetition at all. So that's what I forgot to say last time.
Gotcha.
Anyway, guys, I appreciate it. We got some cutting up to do on this one to make sure it's okay for everybody. Ohio Painting Company podcast with Kevin and Nick, the founders of OPC. We'll be talking to you next week.
Peace.